Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. Today is going to be the mouse ergonomics or mouse shopping guide. So let's first talk about some of the typical steps that most users go through to purchase a mouse. So number one would be to read forums and user reviews. And while this is great for learning about the technology behind the product and for discovering any obvious flaws or defects in the design or in the technology itself, beyond that, it's not going to help you too much. The next step would be to go to a local store and test drive mice. So just put your hand on them, try them out. This is a great idea because one, it'll give you some idea sort of which ones generally fit your hand shape, your hand size, but it's kind of like a mattress where unless you're trying it for an extended period of time, you're not necessarily going to get the full idea of how well suited for you that mouse is. And depending what kind of store you go to, you're probably going to end up with something along the lines of, yeah, that looks great, that's a great mouse, great technology, you should buy it, it's great, from the salesperson. So that doesn't necessarily help you that much at all. So while steps 1 and 2 are both important because they're both part of the buying process, you also have to do some research and educate yourself about the different styles of grips and the different types of mice that are out there. So today I have 4 mice from Razer. I have a Lachesis, an Abyssus, I have a Naga, and I have a Death Adder, and I'm going to tell you guys about the different grips, what the advantages and disadvantages are, and how each of these mice would potentially be suited for you or potentially be terrible for you. So the first grip we're going to look at today is the palm grip. The palm grip has a few advantages. So the first one is that for most people, it is the most natural. Also, for most people, it is the most comfortable. So there's less fatigue involved, and it's much easier to pick up and start using right away. So the disadvantages are that you don't have quite as much control, and in terms of your trigger response times, it is going to be a little bit slower just due to the nature of how you're using the mouse. Now, Razer recommends a few different mice for palm grip users, although you gotta bear in mind that every mouse recommendation comes based on the average male gamer's hands. So I personally have smaller hands. Female gamers might find a completely different set of requirements. So I'm going to show you guys that the Lachesis here, which Razer recommends for a palm type grip, is clearly not going to work for me because as soon as I put my palm on the back of the mouse, my fingers don't really reach properly to the end of the keys. So yeah, forget that. The one that actually is quite comfortable for me with a palm grip is the Death Adder. So the palm grip, the way it basically works is as you're putting your hand down on the mouse, you can see I'm touching it with the very back of my palm, touching it with the middle of my palm, and then my fingers are laying down completely on the mouse. So if I hold it, and you look at it from the side, there are no gaps where I'm not making contact with the mouse itself. Now, the mouse is controlled using the thumb gripping on the left side, the ring and pinky fingers, or one, on the other side, and with the palm itself moving the mouse around from the back. As I said before, it is more comfortable, but you can see that when I actually press the buttons, it can be a little bit slow due to the fact that I have to use my entire finger versus just using a fingertip. Now the next grip we're going to talk about is the claw grip. And the claw grip can be considered pretty much the only other primary grip style, as the last one, the fingertip grip, is almost a subset of the claw grip. So the main difference for a claw grip versus a palm grip is that you do not palm the mouse anymore. So rather than making, let's start with Razer's recommendations first. So they say the Naga, the Death Adder, and the Abyssus are probably all reasonable mice for the claw grip. Personally, I actually find the Lachesis more suited for a claw grip with my hand size because I'm able to place my palm on the raised portion of the mouse at the back. My fingers come up like this so that it kind of resembles a talon from the top down, the way that you're gripping the mouse, and you actuate the mouse buttons with the fingertips versus using your entire finger. So the way that you control the mouse is, once again, using your palm, but not your entire palm. You do use your thumb as well as your pinky and ring fingers to control the right side, or to control the sides of the mouse. And then, as I mentioned before, using your index and your middle finger, you use your fingertips to control the buttons. So this gives you an advantage in terms of speed and control, because you're using a much lighter overall grip on the mouse, so you can make quick, accurate movements more easily. Now, the disadvantage is that compared to the palm grip, this does introduce some extra fatigue, and it also introduces a bit of a learning curve because it's not the natural way that most people will use a mouse. But for many gamers, due to the additional precision and additional speed, it is definitely a worthwhile trade-off. Okay, so let's get right back to the lachesis here for our last grip, which is the fingertip grip. Now, the primary difference between the fingertip grip and the claw grip is that you do not any longer make contact with the mouse with your palm when you're placing your hand onto it. So the fingertip grip, all of the movement and control of the mouse is done through your fingertips. That means your thumb and your ring or pinky fingers are doing most of the movement, but just through the friction of placing your fingers on the button, you're actually somewhat controlling the mouse using your button fingers, that is your index and your middle fingers themselves. So you can see here that while I can use a fingertip grip on the lachesis, it's not comfortable for me. With my small hands, you can see that holding my palm above the back of this mouse is actually fairly difficult. So the reason for Razer having on their website only really small mice as a recommendation for the fingertip grip stems from the fact that those recommendations are based on average hands. In this case, even small hands. So the last mouse I have here with me is the Abyssus, and you can see that for me, this one is actually quite comfortable to hold with a finger grip. If you look from the back, there is plenty of dead space where my palm is not making contact with the mouse. But if you have larger hands, you actually may need to use a lachesis in order to use a fingertip grip, because if your hands are much longer, your fingers are much longer, that may be more comfortable for you. So fingertip grip advantages. The biggest advantage of a fingertip grip is that you have the most precision and the most speed. You are not dragged down by any dead weight that's just for comfort and support. You are only controlling the mouse with the parts that do the controlling and do the quick, accurate movements. However, it has by far the steepest learning curve, and it is also by far the most fatiguing way to use a mouse. So since it's not really that simple, I'm not going to be ending today's episode with a "this is the mouse you should buy and this is the grip type you should use" style segment. Instead, I'm just going to talk about myself a little bit. I am personally a palm grip user. The mouse I'll be using for this last bit of the demo is the Razer Naga Epic, and I'll be using it with one of the interchangeable grips it includes. You can check out my unboxing on my other channel of this mouse to see all of the different grips, but it includes one optimized for claw as well as one optimized for palm. So I've got the palm one on here right now. So the reasons for my personal preference. Okay, number one is I like small hands. Number two is I like heavy mice. I like the heft of a reasonably heavy mouse while I'm using it. So my small hands mean that unless it's a very small mouse like the Abyssus, which we did show today, using anything but a palm grip is not going to give me enough of a hold on the mouse to easily lift it off the mouse pad and move it should I desire, which I do. Not everyone does this though. The other thing is, once again, the weight. Unless I'm using my entire hand to grip the mouse, if it's a heavy mouse, which I do like, then that's not really going to be possible for me to lift up as well, not to mention that heavy mice are not really optimal for using these much finer motor muscles than versus using your wrist and your arm to move the mouse around. So the next thing is game types. So if there's a mouse, say for example, this is why I pulled this out, like the Naga Epic, which is totally optimized for MMO. If you don't use a palm type grip and you go and buy yourself a Naga Epic and let's say it doesn't come with the other two grips, if there's a mouse that's particularly good for what you want to do, then I guess you better find a way to adapt yourself to that particular grip style so that you can use these 12 awesome buttons on the side for your potions and your spells and all of that good stuff. Finally, there is comfort. So I'm lazy, I'm a casual gamer, I'm not professional. I'm willing to compromise the accuracy, agility, and speed of my mousing movements in order to be a little bit more comfortable while I'm gaming. Not to mention that most ergonomically shaped mice are designed for palm use, whereas many of the ambidextrous mice, like the Lachesis or the Abyssus, are optimized for fingertip and claw type grips. So for me, I want a comfortable mouse, I want an ergonomic mouse, so I'm going to naturally tend towards the laziest possible thing, which is a palm grip. Now, many users use versatile mice, and they do actually switch between grips depending on the scenario, depending how they're feeling, depending what they need. I personally don't. I'm all palm grip all the way. So I really hope that this has helped you guys today. Don't forget to check out Razer's website, where they do have the ergonomics guide that will help you select the right Razer mouse for yourself. And please post under the video, what kind of grip do you use, and has our video today helped you decide what kind you would like to use or helped in your mouse shopping decisions in the future? Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. For today's mouse ergonomics guide, we are going to be looking at the most well-designed, most ergonomic possible mouse on the planet. The latest generation Apple mouse, which features aluminum, so it's like really heavy, it's like super heavy, and there's no surface area to grab on. You go and you put your hand on the mouse and it's like all over the table, and it's awesome, and it has a touchpad on it for whatever reason, so this is really good. Best gaming mouse ever, and yeah, do you detect a little bit of sarcasm here?